Welcome to Slammed, a podcast where we talk about the Boston Celtics and the rest of the NBA. I'm Meghan Ottolini from WEI, joined as always by Esteban Bustillos and Justin Turpin, also of EEI Bustillos from GBH. All right, guys. So I know that this Celtics-Bucks game, I feel like it has 1,000 little asterisks. I can never say that word. Asterisks all over it.
Yeah.
With no Giannis and having been at this point almost 48 hours ago, 36 hours ago. But I found the matchup so fascinating that I want to get into some of the intricacies of it. And another near fourth quarter meltdown, what it means for the Celtics as they have this road trip coming up. And also beyond that, just the playoffs around the corner. And this being a team that you could very likely see in the Eastern Conference Finals. So I just want to start with your guys' feelings about how the second half of the Celtics game against the Bucks went with Jayson Tatum not attempting a shot in the third and then them nearly giving up a 21-point lead in the fourth. They had 21 at one point at the beginning of the fourth, and the Bucks were able to cut it down to 3. So what were your major takeaways? Again, a Bucks team without Giannis.
Yeah, I think just for me, we've been talking about this idea of who this team is versus who it was in the past. And I think you could be like, oh, they almost threw it away, a la like they did against Cleveland, but I think they did it, and I think in some way it shows a sense of growth. As you mentioned, the asterisks of Bucks not having Giannis, but the Celtics not having Drew Holiday, Sam Hauser in this game. So in a way, it's almost impressive that they were able to keep their cool. But you do have to correct the stuff like, oh yeah, Jayson Tatum not getting a shot until that second half, until the fourth quarter, stuff like that. So there's concerns, but I do think for me it's like a few years ago, even maybe last year, this team doesn't win that game in the situation they were in.
I actually thought like the third quarter, most of it was good because Milwaukee came out on a run early in the third quarter. The Celtics responded to that run, built the lead up to 20, and then kind of took things easy and really calmed down. And that's when the 20-point lead came and gone in the fourth quarter. But I do think it was kind of interesting, like where Tatum wasn't attempting a shot, really was just kind of letting the game come to him. And he's done that often this year. And like Joe Mazzulla said it in the sense of Jaylen Brown the other night not being defined by one thing, and that is scoring. And I think Jayson Tatum's done the same thing where you see his assist numbers are up. I think last month was one of the best playmaking months we've seen from him in his whole career. So I thought that was interesting. But like the third quarter in itself was good. It was just those 9 minutes in the fourth. And, that's kind of what happened in Cleveland, right? Where players get hot. In that sense, it was Dean Wade where he's knocking down all these threes and the Celtics end up blowing that lead. But I thought it was a good test. Like, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for them to be in these kind of situations at this time of the year, especially when the clutch is such a question mark. Like a lot of people are kind of want to see more from the clutch. So in the end, I thought it was a good thing. And I thought their execution and their purpose down the stretch was fantastic. Like Tatum getting downhill after he hadn't scored, he gets the ball, gets right downhill, and credit to their spacing on that play because Kristaps Porzingis is in the corner. So there's no big man. So Tatum has it and goes right downhill. So I thought their execution was good down the stretch. And all in all, I was pretty pleased with how it turned out.
So I'll say this, and first I want to go to the sound from Joe Mazzulla post game, asked about what you can take away from this game when looking forward to the playoffs with the Bucks.
This is a team you might see in May. What can you take from this game, and what do you think? It seems like they probably feel pretty good about their performance, considering they were missing Giannis.
I mean, we were missing Sam and Drew, so nothing. Can't take anything from the game.
Nothing at all?
I mean, you can, but, you don't want to overthink. Nothing's guaranteed in life. We may see them. They may see us. We may not. You never know what's going to happen. So, I know both teams are developing an identity. There's obviously a DNA there that both teams have, but you don't want to overthink things, and you don't take anything for granted,
Okay. I don't know how you guys feel about this equation of Drew Holiday plus Sam Hauser equals Giannis. Like, I know none of these are perfect formulas and it's not a math equation, but I have to disagree with that. Like, I understand Drew Holiday has been, all defensive NBA player and an all-star as recently as last season. And Sam Hauser was coming off an extremely hot, shooting performance. But Giannis is a player that changes the game, like the definition of a game changer. He's somebody who is regularly in the second or third slot in the MVP conversation the entire season. And so I don't think that it's right to look at the game and go, yeah, they didn't have Giannis in there, but we also didn't have Drew Holiday and Sam Hauser. Like, I think that that's just kind of excusing things. I also think it's a really interesting matchup on the horizon. And Turp and I were talking about this when we were both in the press box at the game Wednesday night, which is, what are you going to do with Damian Lillard? I keep thinking about this since the game. Seeing Damian Lillard in person, he is such a smart point guard and he is such a smart ball handler. And he was searching out these matchups, trying to get to anyone who wasn't Jaylen Brown or Derek White out there. And there were times like I don't know how you guys feel. I thought Jaylen Brown did a pretty good job overall when he was matched up with Damian Lillard. I think he finished the night with like 7 points on Jaylen over 6.5 minutes, somewhere around that. And that's pretty much what Derek White was tasked with back in November, the last time these two teams played each other evenly in a real way. Because if you remember, there was the game after the Minnesota game that the Celtics had when the starters sat for basically 3 quarters. All that to say, like, I don't know if you guys think Drew Holiday is the one who's going to be there for significant matchups against Damian Lillard in the playoffs, but the Dame time thing is real. Like, that's the kind of player that I think the Celtics could really struggle with late in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference Finals. And I wouldn't look at it and just say, well, Drew Holiday is the cheat code here and he's the one who's going to shut him down. He was the secondary defender when they played him back in November. All of it to say, like, I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of rambling on here, but I think it's going to be really interesting matchup to see how you handle Damian Lillard down the stretch. And I wouldn't just say, yeah, it's going to be Drew Holiday's thing to figure out.
Yeah, I think I get that. I do think what Holiday does do, besides just the guy that he's on, is that he's the kind of player that makes the rest of the defense better when he's on the floor. And I was looking at this Bucks team. I hadn't really looked at their sort of ratings heading into until really this morning. I was really fascinated. 4th in offensive rating, 18th in defensive. And I do have to wonder how much of that is losing a guy like Drew Holiday because of making the room for Damian Lillard. So maybe he's not matched up on Damian Lillard directly in a potential playoff scenario, but how does he make the rest of the defense better? And how I think that's a big impact that maybe isn't as measurable. And obviously, when you're going to have Giannis and pick and roll situations with Dame, it's a sort of pick your poison. How do you stop that? I think everybody's trying to figure that out in the league as a whole. But I will say I do think Drew does make a difference, even if he's not necessarily on Damian Lillard.
Yeah, and to your point about Jaylen, I thought Jaylen did a great job on Dame. You're right, absolutely right with the 7 points, 6 minutes. He was 2 of 4 in that stretch. And really in the first half, Dame was not good. 29, I think, or 19 of his points came in the second half. It was 19 of them. And Jaylen was physical with him all night and really made him uncomfortable. And we were talking about it in the press box where he was really searching out those mismatches. Like you said, he was purposely looking for a big. He was uncomfortable with Jaylen. Jaylen was picking him up full court and made him work the whole night. So you look
he wanted Horford and Porzingis any chance he could get. It was so intentional.
Yeah,
it was
really interesting to see. And like, he wanted nothing to do with him. And that's a credit to Jaylen, because Jaylen made him uncomfortable the whole night, was picking him up full court, was physical with them. And he's one of the best players in the league, right? He's a Hall of Famer. Like, he's going to score. And he's just one of those players. And it's a way of like, how do you slow him down? Like, there's a reason he's been one of the most dominant scorers in the league for all these years. It's how do you slow him down? And I thought the Celtics did a good job with that for the most part. They made him work, and he was their number one option. So once you bring Giannis back into the picture, it's like, all right, you kind of have a whole nother weapon here. Also another scorer, an MVP, a game changer, like you said, 100%, all of the things all the mentioned things. And when you bring that in and you bring Drew back, and like Drew's kind of like a quarterback for the Celtics defense, where he is kind of in charge, where he's calling out a lot of the vocal parts. So it is kind of interesting. So I agree with Mazzulla in the sense that like you don't have Hauser and Holiday, but I think Hauser's a little bit lesser, right? Like when you're looking at game changers, it's more about Drew Holiday and Giannis. And I think it does change things a little bit because of how much of an impact Drew has on their defense vocally. And, he really is like a quarterback for that defense.
Yeah, just quickly on Jaylen Brown, do we know he mentioned this, I think, against the last Golden State game. I think he listed himself as 230. How much do we know how much he actually weighs, and does that match like his, because he said that and
did he say 230 or 240? He said a number that I remember because on my
yeah.
My daytime, my other job with EEI, I just sat there and I was like, good God, like Jaden Daniels is not 200 pounds. It was my biggest takeaway.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, because you look at him, you don't think that he's that big. And it's like, oh, well, he can go, if he is that big, as he says, he's able to go against these smaller guys. He's able to go against bigger guys. Physical. It lends credence to why he's such why he can do so much on defense.
But he's definitely way more comfortable with a Dame type guy to go against.
Yeah,
a Dame, a Kyrie, a slightly
even Luka.
In Dame's kid, I'm thinking like a guard, a kind of undersized guard. Like when he said the other night, respectfully, and I know this is like 2 weeks old at this point, but when he's saying that he's the one who should be guarding Jokic, appreciate the confidence, but I'm not sure that that's the solution they're looking for. One more thing that I want to take away from this game, and Turp, I think we were talking about it a little bit after the game as well. What is this team's issue with zone? I want to know, like, I don't want to do the full hacky blame pie thing here, but it's certainly something that this team struggles to recognize and adjust to in the moment. So the zone that they were throwing out in the second half, and Doc Rivers was pretty proud of post game, but Doc Rivers said, he thinks that's the reason that Tatum really disappeared in the third. And do you look at it and go, hey, that's on Tatum? He needs to recognize it. And it shouldn't just be Jaylen who's seeing that he can go into the paint and take his game there. Or is that more on the entire coaching staff? You got like 10 of those guys over in 3/4 zips on the sideline at home. Can they at some point communicate better to the team that this is the point of attack that they should be looking at? Because this is something that under multiple coaches, this Celtics group has sometimes failed to adjust to in the postseason over the last several years.
I will say, I do wonder, like when you have like a zone situation, how difficult it is to recognize like on the floor, because they're not just throwing zones and they're going to do it. They're switching up their defenses. Yeah, I mean, I think anybody who's ever played any sort of form of basketball knows like zone is tricky. But yeah, you're right. It's about finding the open shooters, and everything is moving lightning fast, I'm sure. But I think in general we've seen like a growth in playmaking from guys like Tatum over the years. So I wouldn't be surprised if they still struggle with it down the stretch, just because I think it's more difficult for everybody. But I also think that at this point they should be getting to the point where, especially down the road in the playoffs, they're just more comfortable making the reads that they have to.
I can't really think of any other time where it's really stood out that the zone's given them problems, and that's because they
How
got
about the Heat?
I don't think it has this year though.
I'm saying
in the past. Yes, in the years past, 100%. But this year,
it has broken them at times.
Oh yeah. No, that's been one of the biggest problems. But now it's not, because they got one of the best zone busters in the league, and a 7'2" guy that can shoot from anywhere on the floor, and Kristaps Porzingis. So like when I'm looking at this season, I don't think it's been a problem. In years past, it's been the death of them for years. And like you said, this has been through many different coaches. This isn't just last year, right? This has been a thing for years, but they go out and get Porzingis, one of the best zone busters in the league, and it really hasn't given them any issues this year. I thought even on Wednesday when they played the Bucks, like I didn't think it was really bad. Like they were getting good looks. And I thought Joe Mazzulla made a good point after the game where he said it's kind of just because it's in zone, it's going to be heightened. Like, oh, that zone's making them miss shots. Like that threw them off. But like, I thought the shots they were getting was good. They just weren't making them, which sometimes does happen. But like, I don't think the zone necessarily threw them off as much as people really thought it did, because I thought the process was good. And I thought they were getting good looks. It's just, they weren't falling, which is going to happen across a 48-minute game.
All right. Do you guys, is there anything else you want to take away from this? Do you want to look at anything in the upcoming road trip? I think honestly, it's like we're going to be getting a lot of what we've been getting over the last week or so, which is questionable up until the game. You're taking one of these guys, or at least two of these guys out of your 6-man rotation and giving them a little break. Like
those big toe injuries.
Yeah.
They're painful.
Obliques are going to be barking, I kind of feel like that's what we're looking at. It's a long road trip. A lot of teams that are not playing for much going against you. So it's truly like, I think if we're going to be in the load management days here.
And they only need 3 to clinch the Eastern Conference too. So
right, that was my next question. I thought it was 3. I mean, yeah, even if like let's say like we don't see a lot of Tatum or Brown or Porzingis, I think this team has shown just like even their backups are capable of winning games against some of the lower sort of side of the NBA, which is kind of crazy that you have sort of a second team that is better than other teams in the league. So yeah, I mean, I think the only thing that to really sort of take away is if the starters sort of blow a game or a situation, which I don't necessarily see against the upcoming slate. Detroit, at Chicago, at Atlanta twice, at New Orleans, and then at Charlotte. I think the New Orleans game is interesting just because the Pelicans are doing okay, and I do wonder how much the Celtics will want to sort of test themselves out against that competition this late in the season. So yeah, but I think the big thing is that they don't necessarily, they're not in a position where they have to win all of these games as maybe they have been in the past, which is a good thing.
One thing I am looking for is one of my favorite stats on the year this season is the Celtics are 8-0 when they're missing 2 or more of their preferred starting 5. Just a credit to like their bench unit. They call them the Stay Ready group. Just a credit to those guys. So I'm looking for them to continue that because it's one of my favorite stats. I also wonder now like how that New Orleans game looks without Brandon Ingram, like with him out 2 weeks as of today. Like that kind of just takes some energy out of that one. Because like you said, the Pelicans have been good this year. They've been fun to watch. It's just now with Brandon Ingram sideline, it's like, all right, now they just lost one of their stars. Like we'll see how the energy is with that one. Sorry, you're muted.
Still, we're weeks into this, and I'm still on the mute button. It's time for Take Flight. Let's move on. This is where we look across the NBA, not just in Boston, and we also dive a little bit deeper into some side stories, some sidebars in newspaper parlance of what's going on with the Celtics. And the first one is a little bit of news to me because I know every player out there seems to have a podcast, just like every stupid sports writer, radio personality, radio reporter has a podcast. Every person has a podcast.
This seems meta at this point.
I can't really say that I've listened to LeBron's podcast, but LeBron did give some flowers to Jayson Tatum on his new Mind the Game podcast with JJ Redick. So this one just debuted. Here's what he said.
I mean, I didn't win my first one until I was 28. I think Joker won his first one at 27. I think MJ was 28 as well.
Kobe without Shaq was around the same age.
Yeah, so
Steph was.
Yeah, so like, I think we have a, we have a lot of expectations on JT, but he's experienced a lot of winning in his career so far. And obviously, we everyone wants to see him get over the hump, but 4 conference finals in a finals appearance before the age of 26 that's elite. And like you just said, he's continued to grow, and they are in a position where they can make another title run. And like you said, personnel helps. Adam Porzingis and getting Drew for a bag of Lay's potato chips, that helps as well. that helps as well. But JT is definitely the when you go and you start scouting for Boston, he's the number one guy for sure.
So this may just be my rotten sports radio brain talking. The biggest takeaway from that little compliment and LeBron trying to say, hey, let's have some patience here, is the disrespect to my guys, Marcus Smart and Rob Williams. The bag of Lay's potato chips. So rude. And also I'm sorry, this is my corporate blind spot. Are Lay's and Ruffles under different management? Is that also a shot against the Ruffles, the face of Ruffles, and Jayson Tatum? This is
Isn't LeBron on Ruffles too, though?
Yeah, LeBron and Tatum are both Ruffles.
Okay, so then LeBron is just not doing good SpawnCon here. If you're going to be in the podcasting space, you have to be on your SpawnCon. You got to be on it. You got to be talking about a bag of Ruffles.
Yeah, it's because it's him, Tatum, and Asia Wilson. They are, if you remember that commercial with Charles Barkley and all the bags start talking to him.
Right.
This is besides the point. This is
the point.
This is the point.
If you're gonna mess with the media, you better do it in a way that's at least strategic.
I will say this whole spiel on Tatum that he had of basically being like, look, it takes players a long time in this league, the elite players, to get to that championship level. It did remind me a lot of
very, very new idea, by the way.
Yeah, but it did remind me a lot of what you said, I think, a couple episodes ago. Basically on this topic, he was hitting almost all the same points. It is just really interesting.
Is that sus, as the kids say?
It is interesting that just to hear it from him, though. It's one thing for us to say it, for a guy like LeBron to say that about Tatum and be like this guy has the potential to be next. I think it says a lot that he's getting that sort of respect from somebody who it has what has LeBron not done at this point.
And it feels like all those guys that you kind of mentioned when we're talking about, this person didn't win, like LeBron 26 or 27 didn't win until he was 27, Curry 26, KD and Michael Jordan 28. It feels like all those guys this year have endorsed Jayson Tatum and all right, his time's really coming. Steph Curry was like, this is what we used to do to teams after the Celtics blew them out of the water. Kevin Durant said Jayson Tatum has a chance to become an all-time great. These guys are starting to endorse Jayson Tatum, and I don't think it's anything new because Jayson Tatum has been one of the faces of the league already. Every time there's a primetime matchup for the Celtics, it's always Jayson Tatum's face up there, and he's always been one of the faces of the league. But I think players are really starting to realize, holy moly, he's accomplished a lot of stuff in a short amount of time, and his time really is coming. And I think everyone's starting to understand that he's right on pace. And Megan, you mentioned it last week, or a couple weeks ago, he is directly on pace with where he should be on his career arc, and everyone's kind of endorsing into it. So I think LeBron saying it kind of validates it a little more because he's got a great basketball mind. Obviously, he is what everyone wants to be, especially in today's NBA. Everyone wants to have that success LeBron James had. So to hear him say it definitely holds some more weight. But I think it really is just everyone kind of realizing he's right on target, and we were hard on him for all these years because they're coming up short, but there is something to be said about making the Eastern Conference Finals in 4 of your first 6 years.
Yeah, and he's right on schedule with Jokic too. It's definitely, when you look at the year by year accomplishments of most guys in the league today, it's true. It's just, I don't consider Marcus Smart and Rob Williams potato chips.
Yeah, that was.
And if you're going to consider them potato chips, you might as well get your sponsored content in there. So
That's fair.
This is just a
Product
little lesson.
placement.
This is a little lesson. I want to move on because Anthony Edwards Like, this was a moment for him. This dunk that he had this week, I think we talk about kind of like star-making moments, and it's not as common that they happen in the regular season versus playoffs and finals and Eastern Conference, Western Conference finals when the stage gets really big. But this to me is one of those moments where it's like if you follow the NBA even as a casual fan, you perk up and you go, this guy's really arrived. And I guess my first question to you, like you can rate this in your I don't know what you would call it, like Dunktopia, your
Yeah.
rankings of all dunks as much as you want. I'm also curious about how long until we start seeing Anthony Edwards in this stratosphere of the MVP conversation. Is it 2 seasons from now when he's in there? Is it
Ooh.
3 seasons from now? Is he ever gonna be in there? I feel like we're talking about him at this rate the way that people talked about Anthony Davis, before he was with the Lakers.
Yeah. First, I'll just say that dunk over, I think it was John Collins of the Jazz. I don't know if I've ever seen somebody jump like that. Have you seen? I think from like the corner sideline angle, and it looks like he doesn't jump. He like levitates, and it's so weird. It looks like it's computer generated, but it's
Yeah.
real, and like it's hard. I can't describe it because it's just bizarre the way it looks. Like he just sort of floats to the rim. It's incredible. To the question of where he goes next, I mean, I think legitimately we're like you probably start putting him in the conversation maybe even as soon as next year, especially with the Wolves poised to have at least a decent playoff run. I think a third in the West right now. So yeah, I think this is part of the general broader conversation around the league right now is who sort of takes the place of LeBron, Curry, KD. They're all sort of starting to step out the door, and I think he's one of those guys. And just it's that I don't know. One of the best in-game dunks I've ever seen, and it's a shame. Has he done the dunk contest? We need people like him to do the
Yes.
dunk contest. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
That side angle, if you haven't watched it, is totally worth a watch. That is that's violation. That is a criminal act. What he did to John Collins, that is like pure evil. It is so worth a watch. It's incredible, that side view. But like Esteban said, like I think he's going to be in that conversation sooner rather than later because I feel like that conversation comes with winning. When you look at all these
Mhm.
guys, with really the exception of Luka, and they're still in the postseason picture, like they're all on winning teams. They all have a chance to make the postseason.
Well, I mean, yeah, okay, so I agree with that, like with SGA, but it's not like SGA's like OKC has made it super far yet, you know?
Right. But this year they're at the top and people think they have a chance. It comes with winning. And with the Wolves, number 3 in the West right now, they've been hanging out around the top. It feels like they're not going anywhere, where they're only going to keep getting better. He's only going to keep getting better. It's only a matter of time until he's in that conversation because it just comes with winning. The more you're winning and the more you're making plays like that, the more you're going to get national TV games and more time to like prove yourself. And he's really kind of showing himself. Like I think casual NBA fans knew who he was, but this year he's really kind of putting himself on the map. And I think that conversation is coming sooner rather than later.
The only thing I wanted to bring up about the dunk, and this is like a conversation I don't necessarily agree with, but there was some whispers like, oh, technically it's not a dunk because when you look at it from the top, he technically throws it in. I think it's following the spirit of the law, if not necessarily the letter of the law. So I don't care.
I'm
When
not
you
here to litigate
yeah
dunks, okay?
yeah
If you slam it or if you just are tossing it a little bit at the end. This was something that happened, I think it was during a break on my radio show. We were talking about, like just be happy that you had it, okay? Like we don't need to break down every mechanic of it.
it was an incredible moment. Just let us have this joy. I don't care. It's wonderful.
I do, and this may be something that we get into in a deeper way, a different time. I do think it's really interesting to look at the LeBron, KD, Curry class on their way out, and whether the next class is going to be it's crowded, which is great for
Yeah.
the league, but it goes to Jokic, Luka, Giannis, Tatum, SGA. I would
Mhm.
throw Edwards in there for sure.
Mhm.
Don't know about Morant if Ja's
Should be.
gonna
should
stay
be.
in there.
Yeah.
But it's just it's kind of like it's not a full passing of the torch, but it feels like we're getting very close to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in LeBron's case, he's like survived 2 or 3 classes at this point.
Yeah.
So, Turp, were you gonna say something?
I was just going to say with that dunk, what does that get rated in the dunk contest? Because I feel like somehow they would rate that like a 43.
I mean, this is the problem because it's not even the dunk, it's that he did it in game, right? Like he did it to another person. Maybe that's how you fix the dunk contest, is just have them run up and down, like who can get the best dunk on somebody. You know what I mean? That may be a stupid idea,
Risk the well-being of head contusions, as John
Yes.
Collins suffered.
yeah.
Yes. Turp, do you want to take us through this last point on TakeFlight, because you found this and it sounds hilarious.
Yeah, I saw this on Twitter, and it was about Joe Mazzulla when he was in the Final Four. It's kind of been a talking point where I think Boogie Cousins and John Wall were doing a podcast, and they were talking about how Joe Mazzulla shut them down. And after the game, Joe Mazzulla did a press conference, or he did an interview on the court, and we'll just play the sound right here because he has this accent that has just since disappeared.
What does it feel like to go to the Final Four with your teammates?
It's an amazing feeling, and it's not only that we want to go there for our teammates, but the passion and the emotion that Hugs coaches with, and he's a great representative of the state, and we couldn't have done it without these people.
The 1-3-1 zone, you brought that after playing it under John Beilein. You're the one that talked Bob Huggins into playing it. Are you happy you did?
Yeah, well, I had so much time sitting on the bench freshman year that I was able to just kind of learn the 1-3-1, and once I brought to Hugs the length that we have, and that just goes to show what a great coach Hugs is. For him to listen to his players, and he respects us, and I respect him, and we're going to Indianapolis.
Well, have a great time there. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's for West Virginia.
I don't know where that accent has gone, but on a more serious note, when you listen to Joe Mazzulla kind of discuss the zone that he was coaching, the coach Bob Huggins, a legendary college basketball coach, it's like, wow, this guy was meant to be a head coach. And the craziest thing is, by the time Joe Mazzulla was doing that on-court interview, Al Horford had already started over 200 games in the NBA and was already named an all-star, and Joe Mazzulla was playing in the Final Four.
I love that. I mean, it is a testament to Al overall. In terms of accents disappearing, Mazzulla really has zero accent to my ear, and I'm like you, Esteban. Like, I'm not a native New Englander, so there are times when I feel like I can really notice it, even on a slight level with people. So I don't know, because I feel like it doesn't go the other way either. Like, I guess maybe he does elocution lessons or something to try to lessen an accent, but how do you just phase out of it? I think he would also be more popular. Not that, like, I think he's much better liked this year than he was last year. But if he had the accent, I think his approval rating would skyrocket.
And he's a local guy. People would eat that up.
Yeah. I will say that Final Four run that it was the Final Four. Right. That West Virginia had when Joe Mazzulla. That was in 2010. That was 14 years ago, and Al Horford was already in the league, which is as I think the user at Will Celtics 2000 pointed out, over 200 games, as Turp just brought up. The other thing I take away from it is Joe Mazzulla has been this person, it seems like, his whole life, or at least at some point, like he's talks the same way then as we see him now, of just like, I'm here. I will just tell this to you as plainly as possible what happened, and let me get about my business. Yeah, what a great March Madness moment. And since we're in the thick of it, are y'all bracket folks? Is that a thing? Is that a thing you do?
So I don't bracket anymore. I was a college athlete, and NCAA rules forbid us from participating in brackets. So I stopped then. And once you stop, like, part of it, I'm sure, has to do with the evolution of college basketball, one and done, all of that. It's just was different than when I was in high school and really into it. So I don't. No, I never really got back. I think I did one bracket one year and it felt kind of forced,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I also feel like being in New England, there's a lot of love for UConn and a
Yeah.
lot of love for Providence College, but it really is a pro sports region of the country.
Yeah. Yeah. I did do brackets. Unfortunately, the team, I didn't think they were going to win, but the team I did want to see do well, Texas Tech from my native West Texas, lost last night to NC State. So that's depressing. But yeah, I will say to the point of New England, Massachusetts does have one team this year in the tournaments, and that's Holy Cross Women's who won last night against UT Martin, and their reward is they get to play Iowa tomorrow.
Great. Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah,
Well,
in Iowa.
It's been happy while it lasted for them.
Yeah,
Who knows? Maybe they'll take down Caitlin Clark. Maybe Belichick's daughter will be in the building and give some kind of rousing speech. No, she's busy with the lacrosse team. She doesn't have her lacrosse team is on a winning streak too.
Yeah.
But that's for my lacrosse podcast yet to be launched.
Terp, are you a March Madness guy?
I am. I think yesterday and today are some of the best days of the year. Actually, you know what? The first couple games though were all blowouts. Like 6 of the first 7 were by double digits, so it wasn't as great as it usually was yesterday. But I'm rooting for UConn this year. Obviously, a local tie. I'll be covering the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 at TD Garden.
Oh,
so
nice.
yes. So I'm hoping
That's
for
gonna
a
be
local tie
fun.
there. I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. And another team I'm looking forward to making a deep run is Kansas. Number 25, Nick Timberlake, was actually at Braintree High School at the same time I was.
Oh my God.
Yes, he was a senior when I was a
Awesome.
freshman at Braintree High School. So putting the town of Braintree on the map. So I'm rooting for Nick Timberlake and I'm rooting for Kansas as well.
All right. Awesome. Well, we will, if there's anything extremely notable from March Madness, I'm sure we'll get into it next week. But I think that's all we have for now. We will update you from that Celtics road trip and get back to you on our next episode. Thanks for tuning in as always.